I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the lands where we gather across the state, and pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play in relation to the land, sky and waterways that are used for outdoor activities and have been used for countless generations. I'm in Brisbane, or Meanjin, on Yagara country, which is a place of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. If you want to, you can pop in the chat the place in the country you're joining from today. I'm also always keen to acknowledge the funding that the Queensland Government provides, which supports outdoor activities right across Queensland, and including the funding that allows Outdoors Queensland to do our work, and acknowledge the work that quite a few different government departments and ministers do in relation to outdoor activities, but particularly sport and recreation in the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport, and their engagement with us in relation to that space. I don't really need to introduce myself to you guys, but for the record, Dom Courtney, Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. Mark Squires is my co-host again today. Welcome. As we go along, we will make this recording available on the website and via YouTube. So this is our 14th and final scheduled episode of Coffee and Conversation for 2022. And welcome. Yeah, we've enjoyed doing these sessions this year. We've dropped it to the monthly option, which I think has worked quite well. And we'll look at continuing that into next year as well. As I said before, feel free to ask questions as we go along, and make comments, of course. A bit of an agenda, as per usual, a lot about opportunities, including for consultation in there. And if you've got anything to add to the agenda, just speak up as we go along. And if there's anything for future topics, please contact me or Mark, and just let us know. I just wanted to sort of rewind a little bit first. So the 2022 Outdoors Queensland Awards was held on the 28th of October. Big thank you to the work that went into the event, including the work Mark did as MC, but also a big thank you to the sponsors, which are listed there on the screen: the Queensland Government, BCC, AQIA and KT Basecamp. We've put out a survey which is about delivery of the awards for next year and into the future. So we're hoping heaps of people will complete that survey to make sure that those awards work for you. So yeah, if you get a chance, if you'd have a look at that survey. We've estimated, I think, Mark, we said 8 to 10 minutes to complete it. We've had a few people already complete it. So, and it's in the most recent bulletin we sent out as well. So if you get a chance, if you could, we'd really appreciate some feedback on that. I'll just skip past the next one because that's, yeah, we've got, hopefully Lauren will be able to join us. She might be having some technical difficulties, I'm not sure. But so Lauren's from Outward Bound Australia, and hopefully she'll be joining us to talk about the National, I'm going to get it wrong, Centre for Outdoor Risk and Readiness later on in the session. But I also wanted to, we discussed some summer preparedness measures last session. These ones, the Bureau of Meteorology long range forecast is actually, they're predicting, they predicted in October above median rainfall for most of Eastern Australia over this time. And unfortunately, it seems like they were already pretty right for a large chunk of Victoria and New South Wales, right through there. Then they've also got the new fire danger rating system out there. So that's out there now. So that and the big thing on that is it might require some updates to safety management systems to align with the new fire danger rating system, which is Australia-wide. And then we also want to highlight that that article there about in the Journal of Outdoor and Environmental Education, which was a study on heat and sun-related illness in Australian-led outdoor activities, and that's all about looking at how they can be prevented. So it's a good article and it's worth a look. And I think, yeah, we've got that the links up there on the screen. And I think, Mark, have you got those that you could share those links. Terrific. And I just saw Lauren's just joined us too. G'day, Lauren. I might the other one, I just want to just finish off on this one, on the heat wave warning advice as well. So in October 22, the Bureau of Meteorology actually has commenced issuing these heat wave warnings for severe and extreme heat wave conditions. And it's actually a public warning about heat hazard in over the next 4 days. So they're quite interesting, the new system that they've put out, but it will inform, I think, outdoor activities, particularly whether it's from a outdoor education point of view or outdoor recreation or any other outdoor activities out there. So I think it's worth knowing about that, and it's a bit of a change to what we've had in the past. So I just wanted to highlight that. That one on the screen is just an example map that they put out, talking about what it'll look like. That's a 3-day heatwave forecast. And obviously you can see there what it's got, like the different color coding and that sort of thing. So I just want to highlight that they are important to be aware of it in planning, whether it's planning an event or planning activities in general. So it's only, I think it's a 4-day forecast. So it's a bit hard when you're doing an event plan, but at least it's something you can check in the lead up and check in the lead up to programs as well. So I think it is worth having a handle on that. And I'll just sneak back and I'll introduce Lauren. Thanks very much for joining us today, Lauren. Dr. Lauren Miller is Outward Bound Australia Executive Director and Co-Chair. And Lauren's joined us to speak about the establishment of the National Centre of Outdoor Risk and Readiness, or NatCORR, which Outward Bound Australia is leading that establishment of that centre. So really, I've invited Lauren along to just talk about what this NatCORR might mean for outdoor operators and how we might be able to contribute to it. So happy to hand over to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Dom. Dom, how long do you want me to speak for?
Up to you. We're a pretty small group, so maybe if how you want to do it, if you want to do it a question and answer and 10 minutes, if you're happy with that, whatever you need.
So what I might do is sort of just a quick 10 minutes that sort of flicks through some of the background to it, and I'm going to take this off the co-design webinar that we did, and indeed there is that. If people want to go on to YouTube, that webinar is recorded there, except for the introduction and acknowledgement of country, which we missed, which is a bit unfortunate. And yeah, so I'll just do a quick whiz through and leave a bit of time for questions, hopefully, but just watch me that I don't overdo this. Can I share?
Let's see if I can make you a co-host. Yes, and I'll just stop sharing mine, which will probably help you. So you should be able to share now, Lauren.
Okay, has that come up?
Yep, we can see your screen. Yep, that's perfect now.
Yeah, okay, great.
Beautiful.
Now, this pack and any of the material on it is actually on that YouTube. If you search NatCORR co-design webinar, you'll see it come up. So in essence, this is a webinar for co-design that we held last Monday. It's really the first sort of industry stakeholder engagement piece. Claire Dallett and I hosted it. And, we just went through a little bit of background on Outward Bound's experience because we were really badly impacted by the bushfires. We lost 3 of our major operating areas. UK, Northern New South Wales went up in November. the Blue Mountains that we used went up in December. Victorian Snowy River totally went up January 31. And then ACT, Thawa and Namadgi Park went up in the first week of February. So we kind of got walloped as bad as you could get. And have, some significant lived experience and learnings from that. And, some of the things that we found, cleanup was a massive job, insurance under-delivered. There wasn't actually much help available from the industry. Government support is an enormous quagmire of red tape, takes ages and is not actually necessarily fair, particularly when you're operating across different jurisdictions, state jurisdictions, and it's a long and ongoing road to recovery. I very much had a sense of this is going to happen again. We need to be prepared, and this isn't about a single organisation, it's actually about the industry collectively. The sector is vulnerable. That's a nice picture from Nat Park's Namadgi National Park about a month ago. The workplace is becoming really volatile, and we've got a serious duty of care as employers of people in the outdoors. We all want to continue to take people outdoors, so we need to actually be prepared so that we can give people confidence and manage that duty of care. It's harder for us because I think we are a small but bespoke and somewhat fragmented sector, and responding for any individual organisation is actually resource demanding and quite challenging. So, the key point is it's time for collaboration and action. This one was from Claire Dowlett. What is keeping outdoor educators up at night? Staffing related issues, as it is pretty obvious in terms of the current climate, but weather and climate related concerns are right up there with something that's of worry and concern to the sector. So out of this, I've been very much in, a transformational phase with Outward Bound, wanting to reimagine what is, I think, the heart and heritage of outdoor education in Australia, having been established in 1956, and I think 22 years before the first National Outdoor Ed Conference. Outward Bound's got a lot of the heritage and experience. But also that's a burden as well as a strength. So for us, innovating, rebuilding, would be really make sure that this is, future ready. And that, the biggest challenge for us all is actually what's happening with the outdoors that we all love. And so last January, I wrote a grant to the National Agency for, I can't remember what it's called, Risk and Recovery back then. It's changed its name, obviously. Any federal government agency that has a grant due in by January the 6th is being really cruel. And I spent my Christmas holidays writing this grant, and the amount of industry engagement I could do on it at that time was pretty limited because I started ringing people a couple of weeks before Christmas, and you can imagine how many phone calls I got back about it. So I sort of sat and, wrote this grant from Outward Bound's perspective, because I also am after a capital, renewal for our site at Thawa, but also knowing that this is what the industry needs. To be perfectly honest, I didn't think we would get it. I thought we had Buckleys of getting it. So I was incredibly delighted and surprised when we got it. But of course, it is a little bit one of those ones, careful what you wish for, in terms of Outward Bound is now 100% behind and is tied to our grant obligations to deliver on it. So that's a little bit about the background as to how it came about. The aim is to help prepare outdoor practitioners to continue to safely operate in the face of hostile weather and environmental conditions, and to set up a series of activities and programs to support us in furthering knowledge and skills and response mechanisms so that that we can adapt. The grant itself is 3.7 million. It's going to end up being a 6 or 7 million project. To be honest with you, I'd like it to be a 10 or a 20 million one. And I'm going to need to go out and fundraise to get to the 6 to 7 million mark. So we talked about addressing 10 functional challenge areas, 6 of them really grouped around practice areas. So monitoring, understanding fire, flood and weather conditions, safe access, like how do you get back in to impacted areas? How do you evaluate and assess and go back in safely? The issue of risk management, incident and response, remediation skills and activities, like, how do you, whether it's treeing fells, getting bog vehicles out, fixing tracks, whatever. When we go back in, minimising our ecosystem impacts and aiding recovery, and issues around insurance and financial planning. So they were the 6 practice areas that, we included as potential areas for a NatCORR to contribute. And then there are 4 ways that we thought that we could do this. So helping technology development and utilisation, and knowledge, skills training, PD, less so at the entry level, but more so at the sort of, middle and upper management level, connecting people. So leadership, decision-making and professional judgment, and ensuring that we've got the sort of support mechanisms in place to share knowledge, support and collaborate. And then the last enabler is, compliance and regulatory requirements around guidelines and so forth for best practice. We want it to be a cross-sector initiative, so not just the outdoors sector, and I say that in its broader sense, but also including stakeholders who are operating in this space and can help. So the likes of CSIRO, emergency disaster management agencies, BOM, and land managers, national parks and so forth, because this isn't something that we can do on our own. And also for any individual organisation, it's actually pretty difficult to stay on top of actually managing complex stakeholder networks, because there's a lot about this area where who's who in the zoo is changing pretty rapidly. The grant includes, and this is where I sat there with my, outward bound hat on, 2.2 million of the grant was for a new communal centre at Tharwa in the ACT, where that's 50% funding for that building, and I've got to go out and find the rest of it. So this gives us a place where we can actually meet, gather, run seminars, training, things and so forth on that campus. It kind of makes sense too that it's in the national capital, because there's lots of things that with the word national in the ACT. So it's kind of a good focus point, I think, for from even a government relations perspective, and indeed, in the spirit of sort of a national thing, for it to be located in our national capital. We're going to set up an advisory board so that we can have the right people helping oversee the setup of this. And through the grant, the duration of the grant, which is three years, it will be managed as a project under Outward Bounds governance. That's in the grant. It's done and dusted, but we would want to look at in that time frame where is the best place for the agency, and what best governance model will fit once we're through that establishment phase. We want it to be informed by industry needs, and indeed the purpose of that first webinar was to do exactly that, to take sort of our 6 practice areas and go through a process where we got input, and we're still getting input because it's still open. I'll show you that in a minute. I've got guiding principles. We want to be generous, collaborative and generous, inclusive, adaptive, and learning as we go. Pragmatic and efficient, so do what is practical and doable and get best value for money out of the grant. Be committed to working together with this purpose, common purpose, and also being earth-centered, so really respectful of our planet and its natural ecosystems. So they're the 6 areas, and the way the survey works is, we we put up a series of challenges, like what do we see the challenges being potentially for the sector in each of those 6 areas, and ask people to say to what extent is an issue for them, yay or nay. And there was an open question too on what they think, if there's something we've missed. Goals, like, we've proposed some goals that NatCORR could look towards in that area, and got feedback from people as they think it's a priority or not, and what possible actions that NatCORR could do. This is a big list. And I don't know that we can do everything. So part of it is actually trying to streamline, input into, okay, which bits should we and shouldn't we focus on? So it's not like that, we're doing an ambit claim for to operate across all of those areas. Actually, what we're trying to do is sort of get some feedback on, where do we think that we should operate, and focus what are limited resources. And it's totally fine if some other things are being addressed through other mechanisms, or indeed some things may not be an issue for everyone, or for many people. So that was the way it was structured. That QR code, and I'm going to just pause on that for a moment or two, because I think the survey is still open. So we had about 78 people attend the webinar live, and I think the YouTube version of it has been watched about nearly 100 times since. So if anybody wants to go to that QR code, and it'll take you through the survey, we're happy to still keep collecting input. You can just do that on your phone. But as I said, it's in the website. Is everybody happy if I move on from that one?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll just show you the format then. I'll just show it for you for one of them. So monitoring and understanding flood, fire and weather conditions. What are some of the potential challenge points? And then we set some potential goals. And then we said, okay, what actions might NatCORR undertake? And these little dot points, so the little circles over there, are the enablers. Like, should we be focusing on technology and knowledge development, providing training and resources, collaboration through networks and leadership, or guidelines and regulations? And there is a question at the end that you can see. You go through those 3 sets of slides for all 6. That then sort of in terms of the type of activities that people think are going to be effective. And I can tell you that the feedback at the moment is saying training and resources, and networks and leadership are the ones that are rated slightly higher than the technology and knowledge and the standards and regs. But in terms of a bit of a guide on what is the survey saying, everything's rated as a pretty high priority, to be honest with you, but there is some nuances within there. So next steps, we're collating the input, where we've sort of said field staff survey, but I don't know that we will do a field staff survey, because I think we're just pushing this out. Like, if anybody wants to fill out the survey, it's out, and it seems to be getting, a good amount of traction. So feel free to, pass that on to, your field crews. And then we need to start thinking about our cross-sector industry engagement. So how do we start, once we've sort of collated this, to say this is what we think the industry needs? It's going to some of those stakeholders like CSIRO and BOM and stuff, and saying, hey, this is our where we think we're all wanting to do some collaborative work in. And then we'll sort of start trying to put together a program of work based starting with the highest priority activities, and I need also to do some work on the resourcing plan, because there aren't a heap of people sitting around twiddling their thumbs in our sector at the moment, I think, as you're all aware. And work on a bit of the website, communications launch. I've got a philanthropic campaign too I've got to release and get going on. And when we're doing a NatCORR project launch, on the 9th of December at TOIL. It's also going to be online if you're interested. BOM is going to do a bit of a guest speaker launch of this activity. I think we all know Bo's pretty passionate about the outdoors and has a great following and is a good person to sort of help us spruik the importance of this piece of work. So that's where we're at. I think I'm going to stop there, Dom.
Thanks, Lauren. Does anyone have any questions for Lauren? Like, I think it is an exciting development, I think, in relation to, I mean, it's in the name, I suppose, risk and readiness in relation to crises that are facing the outdoor sector. And I think it's obviously something that needs a significant focus. And I think that's what NatCORR can potentially provide for the entire Australian sector. David, hand up.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks, Dom. I watched the video afterwards because I was away in the field, but
Is David frozen for everybody else?
Yeah, just as he started to ask the question, you froze, mate. If you want to try again.
Try again. Sorry, my Wi-Fi's crashed here. I'm on my hotspot. Was there any consideration given to including workforce retention, scaling, and resilience as part of the response? Because that's been a direct outcome of, I guess, the pandemic and the last 2.5, 3 years, where people have left the industry, have not returned, and therefore there's an ongoing staffing crisis.
Yeah, look, no, I didn't put it in there. What I think we want to do is ensure that we are providing some PD, and, you know, potentially we're going to have to accelerate sort of like the younger crew coming up into middle management and upskill them, and getting the collaboration networks in place. There's, as well as that, I'm aware, OEG got a $2.4 million grant from the Victorian government on workforce development. That's supposed to be an industry initiative. I haven't heard a lot about the direction that's taking, but I also went there's actually more program money in that than there is in NatCORR. So I'm not sure what they're doing. I'm hoping they're going to do something in relation to that. And I think it would be better if the industry sort of really encourages OEG to help us out with that one, David, because I don't think this can do everything.
Yeah, I think on this one, Lauren, looks like Dave's dropped off again, but I mean, we're recording this anyway, so you can always get I think part of that one on the workforce development is, I guess it's about what the scope of NatCORR is. And you said that right at the start about, you know, it's really initially really about the climate change and the readiness and resilience for crisis events, I suppose. COVID has certainly highlighted cracks in systems. So it's done that ridiculously well, but I guess it's also about how else can that be done, and is that part of, as you said, NatCORR's not going to do everything for the whole outdoor industry. It's really about focusing what it can do, I suppose.
There is Claire Dallett, I've heard her talk before about some really interesting stats on the fact that actually post-traumatic events, people are likely to leave the sector. What if they've been involved in a trauma, no matter what the sector is, I think. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've been, if you were in the air traffic control room at the time when a plane went down or whatever, there's a good chance you leave. You know, we might be able to touch on something like that, but, you know, where it points to retention. But I kind of really hope what we'll do is, I think building a community of practice that learns together, shares together, and supports each other will help with retention. And I'm really interested in that sort of like the, you know, the professional development, you know, elements being primarily focused on the middle and upper tiers is probably what I would say.
Yep. Thanks, Lauren. Bill, did you have a question? You're just on mute. Someone had to do it.
Apologies. To two really quick points because I've got to go soon anyway. First, Lauren, there is a non-insurance financial product that mitigates much of the uninsurable risk, which would affect the sector, because as you know, it's getting harder and harder to get insurance for climatic risk and so on. And I'm happy to swap some notes with you about that later.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But there is a financial product which is designed for uninsurable risk. So that would be really, really useful.
Okay, well, I'd be really interested to hear that. Interestingly enough, I mean, everything's rated like, I think, above 65 out of 100 in terms of visitor priority. But one of the, the finance and insurance support is up there in the top 2 or 3.
Yep. Well, we can have a chat about that, and Dom can give you my email address. The other thing is I did some research about, or some modeling about 14 years ago on climatic variability for SEQ water that may actually be very valuable too, because it takes a very different approach to climate risk. And again, we can talk about that. So happy to assist you on that as best I can.
Great, thanks, Phil. They sound interesting.
Yeah. And on that note, I've got to go, everybody. And I'm sorry to come on late, Dom. I had somebody walk into the office and I just couldn't chuck them out. Merry Christmas, and see you all in the new year, and have a fantastic Christmas, everybody.
Thanks, Bill. All right. Any other questions or comments for Lauren? Nope. Thanks very much for joining us today, Lauren. Really appreciate it. Bill's put a note in the chat before he left too, saying he'll fill in your survey this afternoon. So there's another one. And it's good to see. So yeah, thank you very much for coming along today. You're welcome to join us for the rest of the session, but you also, I know you're a busy person, so if you need to leave us, that's cool too. But yeah, thank you very much for that. And it's really good to get the message out there about what this national centre could be. So yeah, thank you for coming along to engage with us about it.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Thanks for your support. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, feel free to just, click through emails if you've got any questions or, ideas.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thanks,
have a good
Lauren.
one. See you.
All right. I'll just go back to sharing my screen, and I'm hoping you can give me a thumbs up if that's actually working. Awesome. Terrific. So moving right along, that was the summer and the heatwave warning service. This one probably most relevant, probably for Andrew Grant, is probably the key one on today's chat, but for outdoor operators in general, particularly people who have, well, they describe it as operators and managers of commercial and community premises that rely on private drinking water supplies. So if you have, and that's talking about whether rainwater, bore water, drawing water from rivers, creeks and dams, or carted water. Queensland Health has released these new guidelines only just in October, and it includes a template to develop a drinking water supply management plan. And it actually specifically mentions in these guidelines applicability to school and church camps and recreation facilities, and they're on the Queensland Health website. So Mark's just shared that in the chat. It's worth having a look at them. It just talks about the precautions that should be taken in relation to drinking water when you're not on town water, which would apply to quite a few camp operators and other outdoor operators across the state. The Queensland government has declared 2023 the year of accessible tourism in Queensland. So what they're talking about there is, it says on their website, they're going to change the perception, or the year of accessible tourism will change the perception of what it means to be an accessible tourism business, and developing a wider range of accessible tourism itineraries and promote accessible tourism destinations and experiences in Queensland. So there's going to be a chunk of funding towards that for outdoor operators, particularly in the tourism space. And they're particularly focused on small to medium-sized tourism and events to develop and enhance accessibility for people with all abilities. So, yeah, I think that's a really interesting development for our space. And you can see in that image on the screen a person in a wheelchair on a pathway, but it's not just about accessibility for wheelchairs. It's accessibility for all people with a disability. And today's actually the last day of Queensland Disability Action Week for this year, and the theme this year was about workforce diversity, and it's about the business benefits of a diverse workforce and encouraging employers to just get support around putting people with disability on your recruitment radar. So I thought it was a really interesting one to bring up as well. It's got a couple of slides about consultation as well. So South Bank in Brisbane, the master plan there is open for feedback until 14th of December. So we've got a couple of weeks, or just under a couple of weeks, about what you might like to see at South Bank. I'm not sure if there's any proposals for horse riding in there, Claire, but it'd be interesting riding through South Bank. But yeah, it is an interesting little one, given it's in the heart of the city, and it is actually all about recreation space. So if anyone wants to have a look at that one, if you haven't already. The other one is the draft National Strategy for Volunteering, which I think is very relevant in relation to outdoor activities. They describe volunteering as time willingly given for the common good and without financial gain, which describes quite a lot of people in the outdoor sectors. Their survey closes today. So if you haven't done it already, it's worth having a look at it. It's a pretty detailed draft strategy, but it is worth having a look at that and having a say if you're interested in that and shaping that space. So I just wanted to flag that. So this next one, it's actually about the Queensland Victorian Department of Education have made some changes around time in lieu arrangements for Victorian teachers, and Outdoors Victoria and also the Australian Camps Association, I didn't put their logo on there, but it's a link to an Outdoors Victoria story about what this means. They've put out a bulletin last week with concerns that the changes for government schools actually risk kids missing out on camps and outdoor learning. And that's partly because it's actually increased some administration, and it seems that some school bookings next year, they've already cancelled or reduced the booking due to the new arrangements. So there's a bit of a concern out there. In Queensland, our Department of Education employment arrangements actually different to the Victorian system. But our agreement that was just recently endorsed includes provisions for a fatigue management system, which would include TOIL. That's going to be implemented in the next few years. So we're hoping that any learnings from the Victorian system would be considered before any changes are made in Queensland. So I think it's something to keep an eye on, but I don't think it's what's happening in Victoria is going to be necessarily duplicated here in Queensland. I just saw, Andrew, you've unmuted yourself. Did you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I mean, the 2019 agreement appeared to have an arrangement that is quite TOIL-like. So
Yeah.
I actually wonder if we haven't been living with it for the last 3 years and not really realising.
Yeah, I think Queensland schools already have some elements of it, but I think it's not quite to the level that Victorians going through now. And I think obviously, you know, it's a good thing to see teachers compensated for the time that they spend at work. You know, that's what the Victorian agreement's all about, I suppose. It's just also about what impact that has in relation to the sector, in relation to school camps, because the last thing we want to see is schools not going on camp due to the potential impact of having to pay TOIL for their teachers. So hopefully we can get that balance right in what it means. So the teachers are fairly compensated for their work, and also the kids are getting the experience of the benefits of school camps, etc. So, and excursions. Yeah, Dave.
Dom, there was an online Zoom meeting about, I want to say 6 weeks ago, with the key stakeholders, hosted by Outdoors Victoria. They still haven't put it anywhere online, unfortunately, or at least I haven't been able to find it because I was on program and on a phone trying to watch the discussion. So might be worth trying to reach out to Andrew in Victoria and say, where is this video and can it be shared with the wider community? Because it did have Department of Education representation talking about how they saw the aspect of TOIL and how it would be implemented through budgets within schools, existing budgets. But then there was a lot of, a lot of misinformation about whether or not budgets are actually going to be able to afford it or not in the Victorian context. It does actually, though, indicate, does set a precedent that potentially the rest of the country could be going that way in the future. And again, it's similar to state governments locking us down during this March. It's been taken out of our hands. The industry's ability to be resilient, as Lauren was just talking about, completely out of our hands by other government departments' decisions, which have an impact on staffing and programs, and obviously ultimately the students we serve.
Yeah. All right, mate, I can follow that up with Andrew pretty easily, so I'll chase him up. I missed that webinar as well. I think it was on a day when I had other meetings, so yeah, I'd be interested to see that. They did just put that bulletin out, which I think, Mark, you've just shared that the link to, which is that one on the screen there. Yeah, so I think, yeah, but it's interesting to see what comes out of what is in that recording, because I think the bulletin they've just put out was interesting. So yeah, Andrew, did you have another comment?
I was also just going to say that at least some, but it's possible quite a few of the independent schools already have TOIL provisions in their individual enterprise agreements as well.
Yeah, and I think have for quite a while. So it hasn't, to date, it hasn't affected the ability for them to go on camp, the decision they make on whether or not they go on camp or excursions. But it's just a matter of what it looks like, I guess, into the future and keeping an eye on it. Yeah, but as I say, it's about that balance between fairly compensating teachers for the work and the efforts they put in, and also making sure that people can continue to go to camp. So, yeah. All righty. Thank you for that. Just wanted to flag this as an opportunity. Life membership of Outdoors Queensland. That's the highest honour that Outdoors Queensland can bestow. If you know anyone who deserves to be honoured as an Outdoors Queensland Life member, can you please email any nominations to us by the 12th of December? So you can make nominations anytime during the year, but for it to be considered by the members at our AGM in March next year, we need to have received the nomination at least 90 days before the AGM. So that's in our constitution. So if you want to make a nomination, you've got 10 whole days left in this period. Otherwise, you can always make one later, but it wouldn't be considered until the next AGM. There's a bit of a process where it's got to go to the board, and then the board refers it to the members at the AGM. So Mark's put a bit of a request in the latest e-news that went out this week, but it's just details of the nominee, some of their history and reasons why they might be suitable as a life member in your opinion. And it has to be signed by a member representative, so the official representative. We've only, as the organisation's only confirmed, well, the members of the organisation have confirmed 7 life memberships since we started in '96. So Ian Heath, John Wood, Donna Little, Dave Batt, Brian Cross, Rob Simpson, and Kathy Kingsford. So if you think there's someone who should join the ranks of the life members, feel free to make a nomination. There's details on our webpage about that as well. And you can send it, yeah, as Mark said there, you can send it to Mark or myself. Yeah, and we'd be keen to see any further nominations. All right, a couple of quick ones. The Great Getaways program. Mark led a Great Getaways paddling day in November. That's why he was given a leave pass to not join us for our session in November. But we've got some getaway weekends coming up at the Queensland Rec Centre at Curramundi in February, and also Seaforth Pines in Mackay, outside Mackay in March next year. So happy if you can let us know about if you can let someone know about these programs, or if you're interested in hosting activity days or being involved in weekend camps or want to get involved, please let us know. And we've got our website there. And I don't think yeah, that's the right one. Yep, the Great Getaways Queensland. And I think I popped the Outdoors for Life one on there as well, which is the other project we've been doing, which is all about capacity development. And again, if anyone's like to be involved in that project, check out our website, or you can email Fiona. It's just fiona@outdoorsqueensland.com.au. So yeah, I've just read through them quickly because not really a lot of change from previous sessions, but if you have any queries, you can always give us a call. A little bit of time on the good old COVID. I think I feel like I sort of cursed us at the start of the year, so I'm going to apologise right now on the record, in the recording, because I think I made a joke at the start of this year that that we were going 2020, 2021, as in WON, 2022, which was 2020 TOO, and then 2023, I'd called that 2023. So I'm guessing in a month's time, we can say, right, this is all over and done with, and we don't have to worry about this COVID business because it's 2023. I don't know if I'm right on that, but I feel like this has been a bit of a repeat of 2020, unfortunately, this year. So the COVID protocols, the Queensland government website still got the same sort of description on there about this new variants and waves, and doing the protocols we need to do to keep everyone COVID safe, which we've talked about for 2 years, I think. And the key messaging they've got on there is still, if you feel sick, stay home and get tested. It's got to that level. But the other thing they have done is introduced the traffic light system, which is about helping us to understand the level of risk and taking precautions. The setting is currently on amber. So the government website says it was reviewed 25th of November with last week. So it's the green precautions, and it's a bit small. I know you probably can't read them on there, but there's the green precautions, which are the standard things that seem to be going to be applied all the time now, plus the extra protocols at amber, which includes some information about mask wearing in healthcare settings, indoors if you can't socially distance, on public transport, if you're older or medically at risk, if you're around people who are vulnerable, or if required by a venue or household. So that last one, if it's required by a venue or household, is the government's way of basically, I think, saying that there's also a decision involved for businesses and other organisations to make in relation to whether masks should be worn in their venues. So there's a little bit of responsibility being pushed back onto the community in relation to safe workplace and that side of things. So I think at the moment, there are only recommendations on there. So it's not the mandates that we have gone through in the last couple of years, but I just wanted to flag it because we are in that amber period. It does seem that maybe this current wave might be coming to an end, but I wouldn't want to hold my breath on that one. But yeah, that seems to be the position that they're taking at the moment. Sure, yeah, others, hopefully we don't get to that red one, which is where we get to also wearing masks indoors, even if you're socially distanced. Does anyone have any comments or questions on that one? Had enough of it? I just also want to flag the Education Queensland rules and protocols. They haven't updated this since the 19th of October. So same as what we talked about last month. They talk about doing excursions and camps, risk assessments to be done before you start the activity, which takes into account what you're going to do, infection control measures, if anyone develops symptoms of COVID or other respiratory illnesses. So it doesn't say that excursions and camps can't go ahead. They say just consider if it's got complex travel arrangements, how you're going to do it. So and there's more information on their website. So I think the Education Department has got that on there deliberately with a section on camps and excursions, which is good to have that that information available. A few reminders there, including our resources and the NatCORR survey, but also that volunteering strategy survey was closed today. Dave, did you want to speak at all about Inside the Outhouse doings?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. And I've got a few other PD notices in the wider community, if that's okay, before we run out of time. We're going to have our last meeting this Monday. I'm about to do some social media posting. It'll just be a Christmas party and a social get-together. So Inside the Outhouse, 4:13 p.m. on Monday, the 5th of December, before we all go into holiday mode. Coming up next weekend, wearing my other hat as a communications coordinator for the OEAQ, so the Outdoor Education Association of Queensland. We're having our I guess our second Fools Forum of the year. I think there might have been one earlier this year or late last year down in the southeast, but there'll be one north of Toowoomba, up at north of Townsville at Paluma next Saturday between 8:30 and 4 o'clock. Tickets are still available. It's a gathering of facilitators of outdoor learnings, and I'll just put the right link into here. There's an Eventbrite link, and again there'll be more promotion on that in social media in the coming days. So that's a very short notice one. I was in a couple of Zoom meetings this week outside of Australia. There was a Zoom meeting about actually just more release information about an upcoming Asia Pacific conference for outdoor educators, which has been hosted again. Sorry, just bring up my other one. Hosted in Singapore within the Singapore University of Social Sciences. That's happening the 13th to the 15th of June, but they're looking for call for abstracts and presenters over the Christmas period, so before the 24th of January. So I figured I'd throw it in today, and that's been hosted by them, but also under the umbrella of the Association of Experiential Education. So there's that link in the thing. So that's an upcoming one. It's very cheap, actually. It's $150 Singaporean, which I think is $200 just to register. So as a Southeast Asian gathering of our experiential educators, that should be an exciting endeavor. And then the last one I was in a Zoom for was the International Camping Fellowship. Had a Zoom meeting this week talking about their upcoming International Congress, which is going to be in October in Spain, which is a long way away. And would cost us a lot of money to fly from Australia currently, but there's the link for that if you were forward planning for next year's budgets and wanted to go to a camping environment. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, Andrew. I went to the one in Melbourne back in the early 2000s, and it was a really interesting gathering of international camping community. And they recognise that whilst our model in Australia is not the summer camp extended programming that they see in North America and Canada and parts of Europe, that we definitely still fall under the same area. So they're a really nice group of people. They're very friendly and they're very diverse. They had speakers in the presentation, and there's a Zoom link from Zoom link there on their website about their presentation, and they had a bit of an hour and a half of talking about it. So that's all my PD stuff from the outhouse.
Thanks, Dave.
I will be in Europe on long service leave at that time next year, so we're planning on going. So yeah,
excellent. It looks like an amazing experience. They're going to base it right next to a Spanish version of Disneyland, and apart from the cost of actually getting there, it looks like an amazing experience if you've got family and you're traveling that time of year. And it's an interesting time of year for us because whilst it's fourth term, it is a traditionally busy time, but it's not normally when they run a lot of those international conferences. So yeah, and they only have them every 3 years, and they've had a 4-year gap because of COVID and various other things. So definitely worth looking at. Thanks, Dom.
Thanks, Dave. And I was actually planning on going up to the Fools Forum too, but the flights next Friday are going to be severely disrupted by airport firefighters strike, which is not very impressive. So I'm actually not going to get up there to the Fields Forum. We're going to send some information.
I
up to
haven't got
Darren.
any plans at the moment because I'm broke
Yeah.
to go,
Yeah.
but I'd love to go. But maybe we should do a road trip, Dom.
That'd be awesome, mate. The trip to Townsville. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but time is not in my side. Yeah. Just the last one for next session. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions, and like right throughout the year as well. I do appreciate it, and thanks for Mark as well for co-hosting these sessions. Our next scheduled session, we're going to go the 3rd Friday in January, so the 20th of January. We decided not to do it on the 1st Friday in January because some people will still be in holiday mode and others will actually might be in peak busy time. So everyone who is on leave in coming weeks, hope you have a good break. Those are in peak time, I guess it's a big thank you for the work that you'll be doing while other people are playing. But yeah, I think there's still a lot going on. We're not quite at the Christmas break yet, but we're moving along. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Unless anyone has any other questions or comments, I think we can finish off there. So I'd just like to finish off with my little slogan. Please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and be kind to the planet. Thanks very much for joining us.